was really helpful. Got it. Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay. So that answers that. So one of the boats, have you heard of this place in Germany, maybe not, called Maximus Modelbau?
Yep.
What do you think of their subs? Because the guy offered there for not much money, I'd have to paint it and do the crack, not, I call it crack filling, but it's not, to make the sub look nice. But he offered to put together, fairly cheaply, a 212A for me, with the whole thing, the watertight cylinder, everything tested, ready to go. All it needs to do is I need to finish off the exterior of the boat.
Yep.
What do you think?
I mean, if you're happy with the price, I have not heard anything bad about him. He really caters more to the European market, although obviously there is his product scattered throughout the North American market. But I've not heard anything bad in terms.
Well, it's the only one I could find. I looked at the Polish guy that I told you about the other day, and he was just too busy making his little 2-inch watertight cylinders for the local market to do anything. And the Maximus said, "Yeah, I'll do it, no problem." And it was very cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And he was only charging like $150 to do all the work, to assemble it, test it, make sure it was working, put it in the sub, try it. He just wasn't going to paint it. And I was like, that's pretty good. It's a bladder system with a pressure switch inside.
Yep.
So it won't overinflate. What's your feeling of the bladder systems? Are they fine?
Yeah, basically it is the equivalent of like the same idea of like a piston system, where that water, when it's being pumped in, is being contained in a centralized location, so there's no chance of sloshing with that rubber bladder. I told you that it's the same system that is utilized in my little Seawolf submarine.
Oh, that's right.
Over there, which uses the peristaltic pump. So I don't know what kind of a pump he uses, but if it's a small enough model, it's likely it may be a peristaltic pump.
Yeah. The only, according to what you were saying the other day, is they just happen to be a little slow.
Yeah, but if it's a small boat, then it's to scale, because you're only filling, say, 3 or 4 or 500 milliliters, right?
Yeah. Okay. Why? And this is an unrelated question. I said this is just kind of cleanup. I've been watching some of the videos and from Subfest and particularly it was the towed camera that I believe Dave was doing behind his boat, and he was chasing a
Japanese
I think it
boat?
was a what?
I think it was a little Japanese midget sub.
No, he was chasing. I think he even said it was an angle boat, or it was some kind of German World War II boat. And the boat was running underwater, but it was kind of exhibiting that porpoising motion. And I'm like, is that because of the boat, or is that because it doesn't have a depth keeper, which I don't imagine if you bought an angle boat, that would be the case. Or is it because it was poorly trimmed when in submerged state, or something else? It wasn't violent, it was just kind of gently going up and down like this underwater.
Right. So depending on the boat, so if it was indeed, was it like an X-tail boat?
No, it's like a World War II German boat.
Oh, I wonder if that was that. No, that's not German. Anyhow, so if we jump back to more general thoughts about that, pitch controller, at least the pitch controllers that I offer, and likely that would have been installed in that boat, they've actually got 3 sensitivity settings. Smaller boats, they would use the first setting, and that responds exceptionally quickly to changes in pitch. Whereas if you got a big boat, it's a little bit it's slower. And so and the reason for that is that small boats change their pitch very, very quickly, and so that pitch controller needs to respond just as quickly. So it could be that he might have been operating off of the wrong setting, and that pitch controller was just being a little hypersensitive to changes in pitch. But I would think is probably more likely because they were just kind of goofing around and chasing each other and that kind of thing. There was probably some manual overrides going on in terms of the depth. So he was probably hunting a little bit for the optimal depth that he wanted to keep at.
Okay.
It could be a number of things. In a good installation, though, a submarine, especially if it's not at full throttle, will be almost dead level.
Right.
If you take a look at the video that I had posted up of when Ed picked up his big Alpha, 48th Alpha at the pond here, like when that periscope is above the water, like it is dead solid level, throughout the entire maneuvering, with just the tip of the periscope sticking out. As you go faster, there's much more propensity for that porpoising because the control surfaces have more effect on the boat at higher speed.
Right.
And so it's harder for the pitch controller to keep things smooth.
Right. One of the guys in Poland, he was saying that these little boats that are like 23, 24 inches long, or just barely over 2 feet, he was saying that pitch controllers aren't such a good thing because I can't say if he said they were too sensitive or not sensitive enough, but they didn't tend to work well in very small boats.
Yeah, and for that reason that I was talking about, and again, the 82 from Kevin McLeod, that's why it's got those sensitivity settings. And so they work very, very well. So Dave Merriman runs almost exclusively 96 scale boats, and those are, not 2 feet, but between 2 and 3 feet long typically, and they're rock solid with those pitch controllers.
Okay, and that's the pitch controller you saw.
Yep, the 82 from Kevin McLeod. Yep.
Okay. Okay, cool. Let's see. Just going up my record. I'm going to skip some and get to the ones. How come in all the fail safes we have the battery, we have loss of signal, we even have low battery, and we even have pressure, but nobody ever talks about a moisture detector. Like, oh, I detect water in the bottom of the sub, or moisture in the electronics where it shouldn't be.
Right.
Why don't they make those? Or
yeah, that's a good question. There was a company, it was a guy out of the UK that would sell, he sold a moisture sensor, and that could be connected to a servo or other device to trip, an event of some kind. I suppose that's just it's a good question. It would be a good idea. The implementation needs to be done properly, because in most RC submarines, there's a certain allowable amount of moisture that's just considered, it's like the actual submarines, right? That's why they had a bilge, because they leaked. So there, a few drips or like a half of a teaspoon of water in the bottom is within the realm of acceptability when you're operating the boats. So you would need to set it up, in such a manner that it doesn't constantly send you back to shore, to check a drip of water or that kind of thing.
Right.
So to answer your question, yeah, it is a really good idea, but I've not seen anybody commercially market a module that integrates, with a fail-safe already to, for example, blow ballast or whatever.
Yeah, that's what you would think it would need to do. Yeah.
Now I'm working with 2 different people right now on a control module that would have that ability. Yeah.
Cool. This is totally not on my set of questions list, but when I was watching, of course, the Subfest video for the umpteenth time, there was that whole section where you started going, well, there is magic. And you started talking about, that's where the magic or the whatever comes in. And I'm like, Oh, well, he has something really cool going on. Are we going to hear about that soon, sometime in the future?
Yes, the issue is that we're dealing with people for whom this is a hobby and not a profession, and so it's all done in their free time, and life takes.
Yeah.
So, um, to answer your question, all I can say is it's in the works. But in terms of a time, that's why I've not publicly announced it. I'm not taking orders. It's just letting people know that we're working on that kind of thing right now. The idea behind it, just so you know, is it's a microprocessor that handles the overarching management of the submarine. So it'll take inputs from a user, which will tell it what it wants to do, but it's actually the microprocessor that's telling the boat to do it. And so we're hoping to be able to set up a whole bunch of, for example, pre-programmed routines where the boat would automatically dive to a certain depth and then execute a turn and then resurface, or whatever it is, because 99% of the time when a boat's lost, it's user problem. It's not a hardware problem.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
I would have assumed the opposite.
No, they're diving down and they're like, oh yeah, it's all fine. Oh shit, I've lost track of it. What do I do? And by the time they figure it out, it's wedged in the weeds, underneath, and no amount of blowing ballast is going to free it from, the lake weeds.
Yeah, interesting. There was a guy, this again goes back to that period in time 20 something years ago when I was sticking my little toe into this, that I met, and that even David Merriman refers to in some of his posts. And I went to his house too. It was up in the Hollywood Hills. He was an effects guy, practical effects guy. So he built like animatronics and stuff. And he had built a clear submarine. You could see all the way through it. And
I've seen pictures. Yeah, I've seen pictures of it. Yep.
And this was in like 2001, I built a system exactly what you said. He had a little metal box, and he could program for it to do figure eights or dive, or, and if you're on the surface and using 2.4 gigahertz, of course, you could use Bluetooth and GPS and give it waypoints.
Yep. This is absolutely all, completely feasible.
Yep. Well, that's really cool. You're working on that. Because one of the things I was going to say, and you can slap me down because it sounds like when I speak to you, that's not the case. But from my memory of 2001, for that period of time, I was like really getting into this. Again, and then I had kids. It seemed like there was an incredible amount of innovation going on, or people trying things. And then when I kind of in the last, 6 months was say, hey, it's time. I really want to do this now. And I have the time and I have the attention and I have the money to focus on it. It seemed like the innovation wasn't there anymore. Thoughts? Am I wrong? Am I just misguided?
No, I mean, there are pockets of individuals who are doing some really innovative things. Like if you take a look at Nick Monahan on the forums and the amazing things that he's doing with his submarine in terms of like magnetic clutches and like Arduino control and that kind of thing. It's really amazing what's going on. The fundamental issue is that in that time period, that was the heyday of the hobby. There was probably 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 members of the subcommittee, globally. So if you think about it, and right now, if I remember correctly, the membership of the subcommittee is like 300, 400.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So if you think about this, let's say 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% of the people are the innovators, right? If you take a look at the world right now, that's probably a realistic percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it was say 5,000 people, that's 250 innovators back then. Whereas now we're looking at, 8 as a percentage. And so the innovation is still going on at the same ratio. It's just a smaller world.
Why did it take that dive? No pun intended. Why did membership and interest?
Because quite frankly, the world changed. The demo, and this is something that we've been talking about in our hobby for a long time. The demographic of people who are sub builders, not just sub skippers, but sub builders, they're more old school, like Gen X and older, because they grew up building plastic models and playing outside and working on cars and working with their hands, right? Mm-hmm. Today's generation of people, maybe starting with the millennials, they're all about instantaneous gratification. They want to open up the box, charge up the batteries, and put it in the water. They're not prepared to invest 100 or 200 or 300 hours in building, a craft and operating it. And there's exceptions, don't get me wrong, but as a rule, they're not willing to invest that time and energy. So, one thing that I need to really work on is this more turnkey solution. So they're going to be simple subs. You just take it out of the box and, it's basically built for you. You drop the module in, you paint it, and you're done. I have to do it because we're not attracting new blood. We need the gateway drug, because it's too intimidating for people to take a look at a model kit that's going to need 100 hours of assembly, and it takes a vast, spectrum of skills in order to make it come into fruition.
Right. Yeah. Well, you're probably right. Finding a sub that looks cool, it's a nice design, that's going to be fun in a pool or wherever, and is just turnkey, but and making it at a price point where it's worth it to you, can still make money, but also people are kind of want to pay that much, whatever it is.
Yep.
And not buy those cheap, really cheap ones you see on Amazon, which are, I don't know.
They're just toys.
40
they're
bucks.
They're pool toys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So, right. Well, that's really interesting. Because I agree. So are you're when I see you get to these gatherings on these tapes, you're one of the younger people there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's again, there's exceptions, but I'd say I'm in the, would you call it, the bottom, 5 or 10% from an age perspective.
Yeah. And you're in your late 40s, right?
Mid 40s. Oh my God, no. I'll be turning 46 in like 2 weeks.
All right. I didn't mean to add years to you. All right, cool. Okay, so I asked you about that. Okay. This I think would be really cool to do, and nobody's done it. And I thought I could do it. I don't know what time frame, but it's something I could do, because this kind of knowledge doesn't come from years of experience, and you could, once instructed, could gain it fairly quickly and depend upon a lot of people's opinion. But it'd be really cool to have state by state a registry of the best places with the clearest fresh water to run.
So yeah, there's a lot to it. So not only do you need to have clear water, but the venue needs to be conducive to running submarines. So you need to have parking in close proximity to the water. You need to have power there. It needs to be open for RC craft, because a lot of the national parks and such don't allow remote control vehicles in there. So it would take someone work to figure it out. And this is really where crowdsourcing would need to come into place, because there's no way that one person will be able to figure that out just going off Google Earth or something like that. But if you could leverage,
that's where you depend on a lot of people, but then go visit them.
Take
time. But because I was reading, you got turned on to the place where you hold Subfest. And I was like, how come everybody didn't know about it that years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but there's got to be other places like it, hidden gems, or at least the closest you can get. Maybe none of them are going to be that good, but they're better.
Yeah,
there are clear.
that's super interesting. I think that would be worthwhile starting a thread on my forums for like the best venues. And you just make it a live thread, and as people find new ones, you just add it to that that list.
Yeah, I think it'd be great, because I tried to look up. It was one of those things in the threads I tried to look up. It was one of those things that I spent a couple hours on it, trying to look up the best places for me besides a pool. And the LA subcommittee, it meets down in a park that's about an hour away from me if the traffic's okay. And I'm looking at it, it's like, yeah, it's okay. Looks like a lot of other park water. And I'm like, that's the best we got. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. But I'm like, California is a huge state. There's got to be other places that have spring-fed pools that aren't national parks, or that you can get access to, and then I thought, well, why is it hard to find this information?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so you should start that thread, and I'm gonna chip away at it. And if I learn of anything, I'll let you know. There's supposedly someplace up in the Central Valley that's a privately owned thing, like where Subfest is held, that has a spring-fed, and I've seen pictures of it. It looks very nice. A spring-fed pool that looks very clear. A bunch of pools, and some with like a little sandy shore, like what they almost have. But I think it'd be a great idea, because I'd love to do that. It's like, do I have to travel? I mean, I'm going to all the way to, where's that, in Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia? I forget.
What, Subfest?
Yeah.
Subfest is in Georgia, and then I believe if things work out well, there's going to be the reflecting pool at Carmel, Indiana in August. That's kind of like the big quasi sort of technically kind of is a subcommittee event. It used to be an official subcommittee event, but it kind of got taken over by the local boat club up there. So at any rate, it's worth going. It's a beautiful venue. It's like basically like a 1 acre swimming pool that's like 3 feet deep. And so you can run your sub completely, worry free, because if it sinks, it's like wading out, up to your thighs to retrieve it. And there's like a big fountain in the middle, and there's like stores all around. It's in downtown Carmel. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, I'd love to go to that. And then I know, because this is where I met Skip Essay. He let me play with the albacore. This is again going back to 20 something years ago. Was it the up in San Francisco in Golden Gate Park, they have the fly casting big pond. I mean, it's huge, maybe nearly an acre too. It's only 4 feet deep, crystal clear water. And I'm like, well, they just built, nobody's talked about it in the homes, but I'm going to go out and look at it. Just out in Pasadena, which is only about 20 minutes from my house. They just built a new fly casting pond. I don't know if they'll let RC sub people into it, but there's no gate around it or anything. And it's only 3 feet deep and looks crystal clear. But it's like, I want to know about all these places.
Yep.
So, awesome. Oh, so what is Subfest? When's the date you're looking at?
Yeah, I have to reach out and get it all locked in, but it's typically the third weekend of September.
Why so late in the fall? Because
up to that point, it is busy every single day from dawn till dusk with swimmers.
Yeah, because the water was so clear the second time versus the first.
And it's a beautiful time of year. The weather is like perfect, and at least it has been the last 2 times we've
don't jinx yourself.
We've been down there.
Yeah. Okay. For this the sub in that I think I'm going to buy from, because the price is right and it will allow me to just dip my fingers in and have something to play with this summer while I'm working on the albacore. It only comes with, though, a cast resin prop. And I'd love to get a brass one. Is there anybody who makes custom brass props?
Yeah, there is a company called the Prop Shop out of the UK. He's expensive and he's slow, but he will do like custom cast, bronze or brass propellers. I'm just trying to see if I can find the product that you're looking at.
Go on the model Maximus model bow and look under the
Yep.
212A.
Yep. I'm looking at it right now. Oh, it's all 3D printed.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go in there and smooth it out. Is that a bad thing?
PETG. Okay. So it's PETG plastic, which is better than PLA, but it's still not like, it's definitely not as good as like a fiberglass kit. I think I talked to you about this before, like with typical 3D printing, and especially these softer plastics, you just have to watch. You don't leave them in a bright direct sun for any period of time whatsoever. Like cover it with a towel, keep it in the shade or whatever, because it'll soften and deform.
Okay.
But it looks really, really cool. I don't have any experience with it whatsoever, so it'll be interesting to see your take and feedback on it. It's a nice size.
Yeah, it's not too small, it's not too big, and the price is right more than anything, so I will let you know, but so yes, great. Okay, so the prop shop, I will look into that. Have you ever? I actually looked on Shapeways. Have you ever used them?
All the time, yeah.
They said they could, at least on the sites, they said, and they even had a picture of a prop. Oh, we can do brass. And I'm like, how are they doing that? Is it like a casting or what?
No.
What are they?
No, I get my props 3D printed there all the time.
Out of metal though?
Yeah. This is a product that I put together for the big Nautilus kits. So this is actually stainless steel. Well,
ooh, that's cool. Yeah, I see it. That's beautiful. That's gorgeous.
So it's plated stainless.
That's awesome.
So that
hey,
you just need to ensure that the thickness of any part is like I think minimum 1 millimeter, but it's a sintered metal product, and they've got aluminum, they've got stainless steel, they've got normal steel, and then if you really want to get fancy, they'll like gold plated or silver plated or whatever you want to do.
God, no, that's not for me. But all I would need to do then is maybe get the prop that comes with the model, the resin version, and have it scanned and then sent to Shapeways, and they could do
I'd be willing to bet that if you looked hard enough, you could find a 3D CAD model of the 212 that would have a prop that you could just take, and that would be the STL file. Because scanning, unless you're going to pay hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a high resolution commercial scanner, it's going to be just nasty and ugly, and it would be easy. Actually, what would be better, and I'm sure you got access to, is just to find a digital artist. It would literally take them half an hour to draft something as simple as a propeller like that.
Okay, all right, that's what I'll do then.
And then the other thing that what I would do, because this is just a 3D printed kit, it's not going to be ultra super high detail, big, awesome resolution. I would literally just take a 7-bladed scimitar prop and then just solder on like a ring to, simulate the attenuator on the back of the 212. Then you've got a commercially available brass propeller that's all pre-engineered and off the shelf. So instead of $100, it might cost you, $30.
Right. Awesome. Okay, that works well. Oh, this is for our what do you call it? Our
Project. Yep.
yeah. Do you, when it's on display and I have the clamshells open in my house, do you know, because I was looking, I was having trouble I wanted to put a little 48 scale, sub skipper, holding binoculars or something, just sitting in there. Where do I find such a thing? Where can
I mean, there's lots of, and I've got a bunch of like World War II era crewmen, like for U-boats and that kind of thing. But that's a good question. I've never really looked for scale crew members. They got to be out there though.
Well, I did find some, but they didn't look appropriate to the.
Take a look.
They were very World War II looking. They didn't look.
Take a look at a company called Andreas Miniatures. Andreas.
Andreas.
They've got like miniatures of anything and everything that you could possibly think of. It's highly possible they might even have submarine crewmen in that rate scale.
Okay, cool. Okay, so back to kind of this scatter shot. Has anybody done, again, this is a future question, just of, actual, put a transmitter like a 75 megahertz on, it would be a big boat, right, to put it in. Put a 75 megahertz radio in the sub, transmit back basic telemetry like depth and speed and direction like north, south, east, west.
Yeah, so like all the 2.4 gigahertz radios that I carry have that functionality built into them already, but obviously they're transmitting on high frequency so that you lose it when you dive.
Right, which is when it would be most valuable.
I haven't seen anybody put together a low frequency transmitter. The thing is, the lower the frequency you have, the lower the data transfer rate. So right. That's why all of the telemetry modules use high frequency radios, because the amount of data that needs to go through. So like it might send back, I suppose in theory, if you got one update per second, it would be,
especially in a sub that's not moving very quickly, about 1 second, I guess it can do damage. But
so to answer your question, I don't know why it wouldn't be possible to do, but I've never seen anybody do it.
Okay. Did you look any further? Not that I asked you to or wanted you to, but I'm still trying to get a hold of that guy who makes that speaker system where the craft becomes the speaker. It's vibrating.
The transducer. No, I got to look into that more. Yeah. I got my big like to-do list here.
And I'm sure it's endless. I can't live without a to-do list. I have to do one every day or I'm a mess.
Your green brain.
Yeah. I have to do it, cross things off, and then I start another one. Okay, so that answered that. Okay. I know you said last time you didn't really know Skip and didn't have much contact with him, and only met him maybe once. Is he sold all of his boats?
I would imagine. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
Would you know a way to contact him? Because I wanted to ask if he wanted or knew, just out of sentimental sake, even though I know you said it was, compared to ships nowadays or boats, it was junk, but I would love to have that one just to look at that I once played with.
I mean, I can reach out and see if anybody's got any contact information for him.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
I know he posted up on the forums not too long after I made that video. He posted up a thank you.
Oh, well, maybe I should go look then. On your site or on the subcommittee?
On my forums, on the Dry Docks forums.
Okay, I'll go look. I don't know if that would be, it would be improper to do that publicly, to say, hey, you want to let me run your boat, you know.
I would just say, hey, Skip, I got a question for you. Can I contact you off forum? I wouldn't post that stuff up, because to be honest, you know,
Well, that's what I'm saying. I want to be sensitive.
Yeah, no,
But you don't look like you're a bird of carrion picking over, you know, somebody's stuff when they're not their best.
Yeah, exactly. No, I just ask him for his contact information off. But like I said, I can try and look into it too.
Okay. Okay. Pressure sensors. Nobody's ever used. Has anybody ever used them to trigger an event?
Angle.
No, except for ballast flow, which I guess the angle thing does. But no, I'm talking about something if you were on the surface, and which is, I don't, you know, obviously the pressure changes depending on, you know, what your altitude is, but you're on the surface of the water and it reads that. And then as you start to dive, it says, okay, I'm diving. And it now, because of that, senses what's going on and triggers something.
Yeah, so that's going to be part of that module that I was telling you about. And that's just simply programming once we have that in, because there's going to be an onboard pressure sensor that's going to be able to tell you the boat at what depth it's at. So after that, if you wanted to,
that's what you're making. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, if it depending on what it is, it's just a matter of programming, right? But yeah, I think to your point, so it's like, oh, you're diving. Oh, I know I'm diving now, so extend forward dive planes and raise periscopes, right?
Yes,
or
exactly.
Like
exactly. That. Please build it.
That is way beyond my experience level, so I have to leverage people who are much smarter than me in that world.
Yeah. Okay, here's the next one. Did you saw that sub that I'm going to get from Maximus Model Bow, or whatever you pronounce it? I don't think it comes with the line scribed in. How do I take? I don't think. Maybe it does, but I don't think, if it doesn't have the, you know, the paneling scribed in, in fact, you're going to face a similar thing when we do ours. How do you overlay accurately those lines that then you're going to go and scribe them in?
Well, you get accurate blueprints, and then you just basically use all of your, you know, drafting tools and rulers to mark it out in pencil, and then you use a scribing tool to describe it.
And so there's no like overlay. You don't project an overlay out of it.
No. You know, with the tools that I have, they're little thin metal overlays, and they've got circles and squares and lines and all of these different things. And so with them, you can build almost any shape to scribe.
Oh, that's cool. Is that something if I go online about, is a common model set of projects I can take tutorials on and find about?
Yeah, I would just search scribing techniques, and actually, you might even search my forums. Dave Merriman's got like so many threads on those forums, and he's a professional model builder, so he's got an infinite amount of material on there. So just search scribe or scribing on my forums.
I heard somebody asked him one of the forums if he would write a book, and he got all pissy about it and said, I've already written a book in these forums. It's too bad, because you should collect it all in one place, even if it's just collecting the forms, all of his things in one place. Because at some point in his life, he, like you said, he's retired now and he's getting older. You know, that information can dissipate, and yet it shouldn't. You know,
I know
he's cranky. You probably have a better relationship with him than anyone.
So, probably.
Yeah, you should elbow him someday about it after he's had a couple beers or something. Yeah, okay. So that's what you do then, to do that stuff. So with my remaining 10 minutes, I'm going to switch the albacore in. So I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but what some guy told me I can't really do this with my fingers without having to look really deep. But what they were saying, because I kept saying, how did the biplanes get up like that? Because they get up in the reverse. And he said, oh, what they're doing, he said, was this. He said, imagine, I can't really do this. Your finger, this isn't an angle, and this is flat. My finger's not going there. And this is the biplane when it's running, okay? And then he said, now roll it. And that's how you get that position. And I said, yeah, but when it's like this, then it's not turning on axis anymore. It's turning like this.
Mm-hmm.
And the person said, yeah, but that should still do the same thing in terms of forcing the boat down and up. And I'm like, really? I'm not convinced yet, but maybe he's right, because it does work. If you just roll it, you get to the position you see in the photos. But then
it feels to me like what we're going to need to do is, rather than using a servo to actuate the pitching moment on the bow planes, we're going to need to use a linear actuator that has more stroke, which means you're not going to have instant, response. It'll be like, which in a bigger boat is going to be fine. But that would allow us to jack, if we used like a worm gear, for example, or a rack and pinion, to rotate it 180 degrees. So we will just build a functionality into it so that when it retracts, that linear servo or linear actuator pulls all the way back as it folds up, and then it spins and then locks into place.
Ooh, cool.
I've never done it, and it's the weirdest, most stupid thing in the entire universe. Dave Merriman shakes his head when we were talking about that on Dive Tribe. He's like, whoever came up with that was like drunk or high or something.
Oh,
like
so
that.
you showed him the pictures and asked him about it.
Yep.
Well, it didn't last very long, so.
No. It'll be cool as hell. It'll be cool as hell to watch, though. People will just be like, that's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. So, cool. One other quick thing. Oh, okay. So what I'm thinking of doing, and we can talk more about this, and this is my last question, then we can get off a little early. So all this is going down. The ship is being scanned. I'm going on the 12th to Boston to meet the people, the submarine people. We're going to tour them and take all these detailed photographs of things. They're giving me a special permission. They're going to take me up on top of the deck and on top of the sail, which they never let anybody do. And I'm going to take all these pictures, and then we're flying over with the drone and do the scan, and then do the tripod scan and the rest of it underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy's going to put together the model. And I've got to make several models. I'm going to make one for the museum, which is useful for them. So it's actually going to have some of the surrounding trees and benches and blah.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to make one, and he's going to, in all these models, he's going to take out all the dents and all the fluctuations in the hull from over time and smooth it out. But then I'm going to make one that's everything in the scan, everything. Then I was going to make one stripping it of everything except the hull. But should then I also ask them to make a separate sail as separate pieces or attached? How do you want?
It's whatever's easy. It's very, very easy to extract the sail because it connects at right angles to the hull. It's not like there's a smooth demarcation that we need to worry about. So if it's easier to keep it whole, or
I don't think it matters to him one way or the other. To him, it's a few strokes of a key.
It would be more flexibility, obviously, to have it as a separate piece. So if he can do it that way, then just do it that way.
Okay. Separate, so fins as well, separated?
Yep.
And propellers separated.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so he'll do that. He'll give you those pieces. Then I'm going to ask them, I'm going to find out about this if it's possible. I don't have an answer yet. From the scan, could we, because you said, well, this is far beyond, but it would certainly speed up our process and make, this goes back to the scribing and or whatever we want to do for inlaid parts. I believe we can, after you pull your mold and you like it and it's all smooth, or even if it's not smooth yet, I believe we can take it back to the same place who's going to cut the thing out of foam for us. And I'll give you more details about what kind of foam it is and everything as we go. But they can go back and laser etch in with this 5-axis machine, all of that stuff. So it doesn't become a labor intensive project for you.
Well, and not only that, it's way more accurate as well, right? Like it's
Right.
a higher quality product than you'd be able to achieve by hand, which is why people are using CNC. So if we're going to be using these to create a master pattern, it might be better to talk to them about the idea of machining it out of like MDF wood rather than foam, because foam obviously can be damaged much easier than that, and MDF is very commonly used to create like master patterns, and it would hold all of that really well. So if we got the basic form in the MDF, depending on the amount, like the level of finish that they're able to achieve there, it can either be post-processed, here and then sent back out for laser etching, or they can post-process and laser etch at the same facility, depending on what services they offer.
Okay, I will get into that in the next week with him. The person who's doing the scanning, and then he's the one who has the relationship with the people who do this kind of thing, because he says he gets it done all the time for architects.
Yeah, no, that would be super cool to do, and like I said, it would result in a much higher quality product at the end of the day.
Okay, cool. All right, well, that's really it. Thank you so much. So I ordered the 6-channel radio and the part, so that's coming, and I'm going to ship it off to Modelbab. They seem to think they didn't have room, which I disagreed with, but what the hell do I know, for your the smaller on and off key fob. And yet when I looked at their watertight cylinder, just from the model they show, I was like, looks like you have room to me.
I don't know. I have to, I'm kind of flipping through their site right now, but without delving deeply, I couldn't tell you whether or not there was room in there. The other thing that you can do though, like the batteries live, I assume, inside the watertight cylinder.
Yeah, he did say there was he said, well, I wouldn't worry about it because there's a switch at the bottom of the sub that you can flip and it will turn it on.
Oh, then if it's accessible from outside the sub, then that's perfect. There's no, having the remote then is just a gimmick. The only reason to have the remote is because typically people don't have access to a way to turn the model on and off from outside the boat. So if he's built in some sort of functionality or access port or whatever that you can just stick your finger up and turn it on and off, that's way better than
okay, then that's what I'll
flipping with a car fob.
Okay. All right, cool. All righty, sir. Well, thank you so much again. And
okay.
I'll just drop you some emails when I know more about after I've had my discussion with the scanner about the MDF and that stuff.
Yeah, let me know for sure. I'm super interested to see what they say.
Yeah, and just when you get a chance to post today's session again, because then I sit there and I listen and I actually type what we say out, so I have notes.
Not a problem.
When I get to my age, I start thinking, what did he say? And I can't read my own writing anymore. 2 weeks later, I look at notes that I scribbled and go, what the hell was that I write?
Yeah, oh no, that's all good.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Yep,
have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye.